waters. My business is at the point where it's, bigger than anything I could do. I'm, I was a young guy. Like I didn't know my ass from my elbow. And, he's like, yep, I will under one condition. He had one condition. You have to go away for, I think it was 3 or 4 days every quarter. Leave your business, leave access, no calls, no nothing. I think it was 4 days. 4 days every quarter. If you don't do it, I won't coach you. I was like, leave my business for 4 days. Like, I can't leave my business. It'll fall apart. Because whatever, your ego, the story you tell yourself, all that stuff. And I did it because I felt like I was like I didn't have a choice, because I needed somebody that was like, and this guy was super smart, super experienced, and an amazing man. So I did it, and it was like, I probably look back on that as probably the greatest gift and the greatest learning that he ever taught me, was to be able to, take time for myself and do the right thing, for that. And I probably not done enough of it. But I'm a slow learner, but it's true. You make a good point.
Yeah, I think it's super important.
I'm flipping back to your process, to your recipe, as you called it. Sorry, that was just like I said, I digress. But so I think we've knocked this build the machine, to scale, and we're going to put some of these notes up on the website for people to be able to reflect back on, and so they'll have access to all of this. But there's a fifth thing that I wrote down, which was align with customers. Like, and I wrote in, you'd use the words align with your customer, which was in a later conversation. So it's like, and then I kind of put in there, like, that's almost like the next level. Like, you get a customer, you bring them through the process, you perfect your process, you refine your process. And then it's like, okay, now how do we align with them? And not even, maybe the better word would maybe be, not that I'm putting words in your mouth or anything, but align with your partners. Like, now the customer and then I love the phrase, like, additional care. Like, how do we provide additional care? When you said that earlier, it's like, oh man, that's it. Like, that is such great words. You should write a book on it. But and then the 2 points that I wrote down around it, and we can take it wherever you want, which was extend your offer. I heard you say extend your offer. I think I heard you say that.
I think I might have said like we're an extension of our customer, like an extension
Right.
of their supply chain.
Okay. And then the other one was raving fans, and your words were captive clients. So, and that doesn't have to be the next thing. Like, after build the machine, I'm happy to pop another one in, but we can deal with this one a little bit, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you have the client, then the next, it's not enough to just say, okay, I got the client, and that's the end of that interaction. I think we work closely with our clients to understand, and all of them are different, but like we work closely with them to say, hey, what else can we do? Like, how else could we help make your life, your purchasing team's life, your planning team's life easier? Are there informational reports we can help pull for you guys? Do you want to see, some certain information coming through? Like we do a lot of vendor managed inventory programs. Some clients want to see, reports on daily basis. They want to see average, volumes and sales, velocities of things. And so those kinds of things where they can find the information too. You have purchasing history just like we have sales history. But why am I going to make you search if I can do it for you? So those are the additional points where I'm like, what else can I do for you? Is it the client that says, I don't know how to plan my runs, man? Like, I'm just going to send you a spreadsheet of what I think I need, and you come back and optimize this for me. Sure, no problem. Our team knows exactly what to do with that, right? So, those are the kinds of things where we say, okay, it's one thing to deal with the transaction, and then it's another thing to assist you in running your business, that your success is my success. If I help you run better, I help you get better costing, I help you get, product into market, you're going to do your job. You're an entrepreneur also. You want to build your business. And so if I'm arming you with some things and then you go ahead and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to grow. And if you grow, I'm going to grow. And that's a fundamental thing that we believe with all of our clients. That's why we've had so much organic growth even within some of our clients, even within the clients that have been with us for, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've had clients since day one or in my first year that are still with us to today, and I've watched them grow. And it's always that's always the amazing part about the journey. I was just on a call with a client yesterday, and when he first started running, he was running like 100,000 boxes, and this morning I get a PO and he's running 2 million boxes. And I've been with him since day one, and the whole conversation happened because someone knocked on his door and he's like, Irfan, I'm going to just I'm going to share with you what's out there so you can understand better about your business. And he sort of gave me some information around where our competitors were. Look, I appreciate it. That helps me. The good thing to see was that we were super competitive, and and it was a good learning for us to understand what's kind of out there, how my competitors are transacting. But he's like, we've had loyalties since an early moment in time. I would do anything for them. I know that then he wouldn't turn around tomorrow and just disappear. He would have a conversation if he had to. And so those kinds of relationships. And he's like, oh, by the way, I need that stuff in January, right? So it's that, right? Like he knows, they know that they can, and they know that we will if we can, and we make things happen. And it's allowed them along the way. There's been numerous times we've run for them, and it's, hey, sorry, I didn't plan this. I forgot this. I need this. And the answer's always been yes. And I think we never did that with the intention of like, hey, that's going to yield to something else. But what we've realized going back and looking at this, like in the beginning, it was just, hey, we provide value for our clients. We want to be flexible. We want to be nimble. We want to be the best and the fastest. But what we realized in hindsight, when we look back, we're like, you know what? That really helped them too. Right. And that was the unintended consequence or the unintended benefit for them of dealing with us, was that they were able to say yes and they were able to grow their businesses, and I wasn't part of the problem for for them to get to where they had to get to, right? And so that was an interesting learning, and I think it's something that we really now pride ourselves on making sure that we continue to do.
Do you mind if I put you a little bit on the spot in, because you'd made the comment, this had started kind of with what else, going in and saying, what else can I do with you or do for you? Um, do you can you role play what that would look like, so that, because I feel like I'm listening to you talk about it and I'm thinking, is the listener looking and going, okay, yeah, that's all fine, but like a lot of people get a customer and they hope that they're satisfied or think they're satisfied, but they may only be taking it to an 8 out of 10 level, and they fail to take it to that next 10, that 10 out of 10, which is really creating, like you call, I'm going to use your words, additional care. Um, what would that conversation look like? Hey, Mr. Customer, or what do you do that over dinner? Do you do, well, what would your strategy be?
When we see things that have worked for somebody, like I told you earlier, we try to learn from you've come to me, you said, hey, I need, I'm really struggling with my planning and I'm not sure. And the retailer keeps on asking me for stuff, because in this world, the retailer dictates when they want stuff and you can't leave their store shelf empty. So you have huge financial penalties or potential for delisting. And so our clients are on the ready for doing stuff, but they can plan their own business. And where they struggle with is around planning their packaging, but nothing leaves their facility without the box with the UPC code and all the ingredients and nutritionals and everything else they need, right? So, a lot of clients are coming to us saying, "Hey, we're struggling with our planning. We don't have enough information," and so we're going to them saying, or I'm seeing it happen, like, "Hey, this is the fourth time you've put a rush order in, and we've had to scramble, and we've had to do this, and we've had to buy inefficient materials because we didn't have something on our floor for you. Like, let me help you. Let us come to you with a proposal for how we can help assist you. If it's me carrying some extra inventory for that moment where you have that reactionary situation, if it's me helping you to plan your runs better based on historical volume information that we might have, it's stuff that we would do internally, and then as an entrepreneur, when we're dealing with some of them externally, they're so busy running their business that they haven't. It's almost like packaging consulting on on steroids for them. We're taking one part of their business where they have a procurement person who has to buy their ingredients and 10 other things and say, I want this part to feel expert level within your organization. So I want to come to you with what am I seeing? Where am I seeing you having pain points and you having to then rush and create? And is there something that we can do as a business to help facilitate that to not become a pain point for you anymore, right? You know, do you want me to vendor manage the finished goods inventory? Do you want me to have raw materials in our store? Do you want me to run, certain types of reporting for you guys? You know, do you want me to do these things where I can? It's not just your guy sends me a PO and I execute it and you get boxes and we wipe our hands. Like that might be the 8 out of 10, and I might do a good job of doing that. But it's those other couple of things where I'm like, you know what, I've got you. I want to be behind you. I want to be an extension of your business. And I want to talk to you about what that looks like. And is there a way for us to be able to help you so that you're not in that situation? And then, from there, like last year, we made an investment where we vertically integrated one of our processes. We bought the machine that we were sending out. So that gave us another level of flexibility. We then went to our clients and said, now we control this next process. I can even do this for you now that I couldn't do before because that guy didn't want to deal with it. I've now brought that in house. I could cut off of any roll of paper that I have on my floor, and I could get you, I could get you this emergency thing. And so, rest assured, you can do your business, and I'm going to have all of this stuff on the back end to be able to support your growth if it comes, right? And so, those are the kinds of conversations that we have that are outside of the original transaction, which was just here's a quote for a box.
Yeah, no, that's so smart. I mean, and as you were telling that story, it reminded me. I had a conversation with a restaurateur once, not actually not a super long time ago, and he said they were collecting data on their clients, so they would like you'd fill out whatever address, birth dates, like that stuff. You fill it out, and you're I forget. I think at the time that you were getting like a free meal or something like that. And so we just got to chatting. Um, and I said, like, how do you use your information? He goes, oh, well, I can tell you two things. One, here's how we don't use it. You'll never get a like dumb, promotional offer or anything like that from us. Like you won't get like some social media blasty email thing like, oh, come for Valentine's Day dinner or some stuff like that. But he said, what you will get is we track what you eat. And then, like, so for example, on your wife's birthday, you'll receive a note from us a month before her birthday asking if, hey, Dwayne, we know your wife's birthday is coming up next month. Would you like us to plan you a private meal, tucked away in the corner so that you guys can have a romantic evening, and we can order in some, we know that you eat, meat. That's one of your favorite meals that you order. So we can order in some special steaks from our suppliers, da 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 da. And it was, I thought it was really interesting, and then he's like, we'll do the same thing for kids. Like, well, hey, we have a party room in the back. We can do a party, da da da. And it's like, to me, it's like, you get a call a month out from, oh man, oh yeah, my anniversary. Oh man, my wife's birthday. Oh man, right? And it's just like a reminder. It's not like you're going to miss those things, but it's a reminder, and you're like, oh, this just takes the thinking out of it for me, and it's just like so value add. And I wanted to add the story popped into my head, and so I just wanted to add it because there's businesses out there like you have a distribution chain business that can be very complex, and there's lots of data that is traveling back and forth between the different parties, and so there is that opportunity. But some people, and are business people, and I've fallen into this trap myself, is like when you're in your business, like when I listen to you speak, I go, oh yeah, well that makes a lot of sense. And then we have, in our businesses, we could be like missing the boat completely because, we don't see the examples in our own kind of home, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you just took a perfect example of a I don't, of a quote unquote ordinary
Yep.
business. I mean, you're a restaurant, you're one of a bazillion restaurants, and yet they took something so easy and made their customer's experience better. Like, I mean, that takes the thinking out of the planning, reminder of it, like that stuff that I know I'll generally leave to the last minute and then book whatever restaurant. Like what a smart idea. And so again, that's just an iterative thing on an existing business where you've now come in and added some value, and I'm sure it's probably doing well for for that entrepreneur, right? So, it's those things where people think that has to be, you said disruption earlier, has to be some monumental shift in the way that you do things, but it's not. It's the devil's in the details, right? It's those little things, it's the little touches, it's the little points where you're just trying to make it easier for the person, your customer, in your case, or in our case, easier for them to do their job. I don't want to be the problem. I want to be the solution. I don't want them to be talking about EV Box Company didn't do this and now we can't do this, or like those kinds of things we take very very seriously. If we hear that, we want to be able to make sure that there's something in place that doesn't happen again, right? So, if that's the constant focus where you're trying to make your customers' life easier and give value, everything else starts to fall into
Yeah,
place as an
so
entrepreneur.
true. It's so true, bro. We have five things so far in our process of your recipe, if you will. This is really good for a guy who doesn't have a book and doesn't like go on stage. I mean, it's so valuable. It's just going to be so valuable for our listeners. So I'm super appreciative, bro.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, look, I think that the recipe is pretty well there until from a business operation. I think the last thing that I would add to it would be sort of understanding the feedback loop and evaluation, like sort of what's iterative for you as a business. So, you think you're doing the right things, you think you're heading in the right direction, but what are some of the internal metrics or scorecards that you're using to determine and evaluate if the machine's still working and going in the right direction, right? And so, I mean, the easiest one of that is sales profitability. Like those are financially evident, but we do things like customer surveys, customer satisfaction, you know, talking to your clients, in talking to our teams internally and understanding if we're making the job easier for ourselves and if we're continuing to still solve the problem for the customer. So I think um, you know taking a moment in time with your team to assess what you're doing and are you continuously on the path. It gets very easy to sort of veer off of what you're doing. So I think spending some time actually evaluating your business from a bit of more of a bird's eye view is something that probably closes the loop of that machine having continuous feedback. Right, it's getting continuous external feedback. It's also about getting continuous internal feedback and buy-in from your team to make sure that you're staying on track. You're staying true to the
Yeah.
values.
So you talked about customer service satisfaction surveys and sales profitability. Are there any other major metrics that you're kind of focusing on?
We look internally too, so we do internal employee sort of engagement satisfaction. Um, we sit down with teams to understand like is you know where we thought information was, this is a big thing that we deal with internally all the time. It's like, this is how we communicate to you with information. Then you realize that if you keep communicating to me this way, we're not going to be able to deliver what you want. We need to find a more efficient or a better way for us to be able to do this so that we can continue to go on with the scale, right? Like I think it's such a push and pull thing. People don't always look back internally to see like it's external focus, external focus. But like I said to you earlier, it's a bit of a balancing act. You go hard, you grow external, then you have to start to improve your internal, and it's that review of feedback and you know making those adjustments that that ultimately makes it a machine. Like it starts to not require this is happening. We're seeing a problem. Okay, start to do this. This needs to get fixed. This allows us to do some more of this. This becomes a problem, and it's that constant loop where if you're taking some time to review it, you'll find your business is able to perform and scale at a better rate.
This
then
is a
if you're
big
not looking.
significant. I really want to draw a point to this for the listener, because what I'm hearing is like there's, you at best, most people are, doing external with their clients, then they come back and then fix the internal, but it's a reactionary process most of the time. And what it seems like, what I'm hearing is like you guys have taken it a little bit beyond the reaction to fix, which is to the um, purposeful or progressive, I guess would be the better word, purposeful or progressive movement forward on internal operations. Especially, and that your point about communications is like, that is so, typically something will get fixed in communication because there was a problem, which is reactionary. But
Right.
you
Yeah.
guys are going out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
are
Which
really
happens.
digging deep with your employees to find out how can we make this better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
look, it happens. I mean, some of the changes are just from a client saying, "Hey, this went wrong, and we want to address it." But we also sit internally and say, like, what do you like? Where are we causing? Just forget the client side of it. Like, where are we causing pain points? How can we make life better? How can we make this experience smoother? Like, again, we want it to be the easier it is for our employees to do, the happier they are to do it, the better things progress internally, right? So, if you keep getting something and every single day you get it, and you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Like, why does it have to come to me like this? Well, I want you to speak up because there's likely something that we can do about this. Don't sit there and suffer or be angry or be upset. We want to be able to have those conversations internally. And so we're trying to have those conversations on a regular basis with our team to say, please share, because anything that you provide that is an improvement to your life is likely an improvement to our business, is likely an improvement to our process. And and that's what it is. You start here, and then you just start to do this, do this, do this, do this, until you get sort of something that's refined, and then you move on to another area of your business and start looking at it in that same fashion. 17 years later, you're surprised to see that a lot of these things have kind of ironed themselves out and buttoned themselves down. You grow, you realize you create a new problem,
Square
and then
one.
you're back to square one, fixing that and dealing with it. But you're constantly, you're never going back to zero. You're constantly just going back. It's two steps back, a step forward, and then you keep taking those steps, but or two steps forward, one step back. But you're keeping on taking those steps forward over the course of time. You're in a situation where your fallback is less of an issue, right? It's for us, customer experience and all those things are great, but also, one of the big things we talked about earlier is like, how do we disseminate information across our organization where, you're trying to alleviate errors and mistakes, because that's another big consideration for business. Like, you don't want to run an order and then have, there's 100,000 boxes that are getting rejected. And so, constantly building the processes around the notion that your business wants to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger at some point is something that you have to look at very forward looking, not just today, but how do you want this to operate if you want to go from, 10 million to 20 million to 40 million? Those kinds of steps in your business need the back end process. The internal stuff that nobody ever sees has to be, somewhat buttoned down and polished. Otherwise, it just creates issues and could lead to very costly errors along
Yeah,
the
I think
process.
this is.
So
I think it's fair to say that this is a pretty common problem in businesses out there. That they work really really hard on doing the external, but they fall a little short and on the internal, and making sure that those processes are set up, and then they get very reactionary, and then when you're reactionary, it's like that's when life kind of starts to not be as fun, because
yeah, right. And that's when it all falls on you, right? Like, that's where, as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, all these problems are landing on my lap, and I've got to, I used to say, you're a firefighter. Like, what do you do for that? You're just putting out fires all day. And so when you start to see the same fire go up two or three times, like, you've got to do something about it. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be dealing with it and dealing with the frustration that comes. And then you're looking around saying, why can't my people, like, why can't they understand? If I did it, I'd do it perfectly. I'm like, that's nice, but if you did it, your business wouldn't be anywhere. You can't get past yourself in that value chain. Then all of a sudden you're just operating a business that's
Hmm.
reliant on you to be there all the time. So, I think that's where a lot of the entrepreneurs, and myself included, early on, it was really hard to give up control of your business. It was really hard to give up control of the things that you built. I'm like, you know what? I built this form. I built the docket system. I built this. I can do it. I can do it. I can do a docket twice as fast as you. I can get like 10 production tickets out and you'll get five, right? It's like, okay, that's nice. And you can spend your whole day at your desk. And what happens when you have to do 20? What happens when you do 40? What happens when you do 100 of these a day?
Yeah, it no longer works, right?
You can't
Yeah,
be at your desk all day.
yeah,
It no longer works, right? And so, like, as an entrepreneur, it's hard because I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give it up. And then they might make a mistake. Oh my goodness. Okay, guess what? Like I said to you earlier, that's my problem. If you made the mistake, how am I going to help you in that process? And I remember my dad early on in the journey. He came and he's we're both the accountants, but I'd say he's more of the accountant, and I sort of took the other, which I thank God for him being my partner because I hate the accounting stuff. And I did it. But I look back to him, and he'd be like, as we start to grow, and somebody else would do something, and he would look at something, and he'd be like, oh, they made a mistake, and it cost us, thousands. Oh, he found another mistake, and it cost us. And I said, Dad, you're going to come in here really often if that's the case. And I said, like, how much money would you spend from our profits to just have peace of mind to understand that there's going to be mistakes? Like, that's part of
hmm
growing. And if we look at every single mistake and say there's a mistake and I could have done better, then we're not going to get anywhere. So I want you to take a sum of money, right? And he gave me a number, and I'm like, okay, write a check. Pretend the money's gone. It won't be there at the end of the year. But our people are going to make those mistakes, and every time they make a mistake, you can go and deduct it from that pot, and then don't worry about it again. It can just be out of your mind. It was expected. Now my job is to make sure that we put in enough processes and controls and training and all the other things so that we're not doing these things. But in the beginning, it's going to be learning. And it was an interesting conversation because he saw it differently than I. Like, we saw things a bit differently, and when he finally got his head around it, his stress level and his, like, sort of, you know anxiousness around it, it went down, and he wasn't in my office every single day being like, that person made a mistake, that person made a mistake. It was like, okay, I saw it. What are we doing to fix it? And that started to become, that was the beginning of, like, hey, it's going to happen, but the only way we can relinquish control of this business is to understand that this is going to happen, be okay with it happening, and then start to work through how do we stop it from happening, and how do we make sure that it never happens on a large enough scale that it's materially damaging to our
right.
business or to our
It's funny
clients, right?
when you were talking about that originally before you used your example of your dad. I was like, yeah, this is where when things are going wrong in your business, this is where business people, business owners start to shift. Not all of them, but some of them will shift to a blame. Like, well, who did this? Who did that? And then you get into this game of gotcha, and then nobody likes playing that game. That's the worst game ever. And it really, it's like the encouragement I would make is people need to get into the once they start to, if they hear themselves saying like who or what or why or it not necessarily the why, but it's shift from people to process, right, rather than it be somebody else's fault. And then now it's like, look, something's going wrong all the time in business, like especially you get big enough business, it's like it would drive you mental. But I will oftentimes, like, and there's, I mean, you get wound up or excited or frustrated about something, and then oftentimes, like, I'll within minutes just go, okay, wait a second, like, I'm responsible for the process, or coaching the process, coaching the team to develop the process. So, what did I miss that if I had coached them better, or predicted the future in a way that I think there's a lot of power in being able to um, to improve things before they happen, like to make sure that things don't happen that that could have happened, that you avoided the big mistake. And yeah, so be careful of who you blame. Um, Most of the time, it's a process, and that just requires training and follow up and probably a little bit of encouragement.
Yeah, I mean that's why we all say, like, my dad. It was back to the expensive MBA. I'm like, the first mistake is on us, and it's just a process. And like, don't. There's no reason to get upset. Like, you have, you know, stay calm, and let's just review what. Like, if it's literally the process was in place and someone made a mistake, then we're back to training. And then if it keeps happening, we're back to that's the wrong person, and maybe we got to fix it. But generally, 9 times out of 10, it's we could have done something better in our process along the way to put in, a check or a control so that this wouldn't have happened. And that's on us. That's on us as business owners. And that's the beauty of, going back to that machine, which is that continuously iterative process. That if you take the emotion out of it and you look at this as a learning opportunity, you can improve your business so quickly instead of the vice versa, which is the blame game. It's their fault and their fault. Well, guess what? You replace them with somebody else and they make the same mistake, and you replace them with somebody else and they make the same mistake. You start to realize it's not the person. It likely is the process. And if you're not looking inside it yourself to say, that's my job, like, that's the value, that's what I'm supposed to be providing. I'm supposed to be providing them with the support for them to be able to do their job well, not get mad at all these people because they didn't do it my way. And I'm going to just keep going through them. And so, we see that sometimes. I see it in my clients where, we'll go through like so much churn. And I'm like, this is a client that really needs us because they're churning through their people. And we need to be able to provide them with the continuity and the support on their packaging side so that they continue to operate while they're going through this. But sometimes you're looking at them being like, just did a couple of these things, you might have a better process. You might arm them with a better chance for success. And so, internally, that's something that as an entrepreneur, and I know my dad, like, that's something that we talked about early on. I'm like, it's on us first before we look outside. It
Yeah,
has to be inside.
that's good. That's such good advice. It's such good advice. Um, we were talking earlier about you'd made a comment that said, I'm just trying to read my notes here. Yeah, you got to the point in your business where you said, I don't have anything to do, which is a super quality problem, but it's also can be a little destructive to an entrepreneur or a business owner. And I'm curious, how'd you handle it? Um, what advice would you give? Like, it's because I've seen it happen so many times where people get to that point and then they either go and do something like intergalactically stupid, and make an investment that they would either never make, or they start spending time in an area where they shouldn't be spending time. And so I'm just curious if there's any, how'd you handle it, and what's what were the benefits and what were the downsides?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say early on, I handled it with a bit of anxiety and a bit of uh, loss, I would say, in terms of, like, I used to be the sort of key person and the key driver and had my hand in a lot of the cookie jars. And, as the business grows, it's just not sort of functionally possible. So at first I struggled with it a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I was like, hey, where's the value? I'm the entrepreneur. I should be the guy providing all the value and I have all the answers. And so it took a bit. I think that was my own ego a bit to say, hey, like, you know, Where's me in the equation of this business? Um, and then that started to transition to looking around and being like, hey, I'm kind of proud of what these guys are doing. I'm kind of proud of where we've become. And then it was about where, where can I start to provide my sense of value? Like, so if it's not going to be on the day-to-day operational side of the business, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritties of all these things. That's actually giving me a lot more time and opportunity to do certain things that might have gotten pushed behind. So now we start having conversations around, strategy and looking down the road, and if it's acquisitions of businesses, or if it's more space or more equipment, or the things that I think if we can deliver on well, we can start to actually generate even faster and faster returns than me being involved in the operation. So, it was anxiousness and anxiety and sort of a feeling of loss or emptiness in terms of not
Mm-hmm.
not being involved. And then I think a couple of things I'll say were positives. I got more time with my kids. I got, a bit more time to do some golfing, and like really started to take some time to, on a personal level, to really enjoy, some of the things that are going on in my life. And then on a business side, say, you know what, the team's doing a great job of operating this on a day-to-day basis. What do I need to do to support them going forward? Because if they're doing this good of a job and the business continues to grow, are they armed with all the things that they need? And where are those issues? And what am I seeing? And how do I be part of the solution to that problem? And I've got to be able to see that out in advance. Collaborate with my team, but I can see certain things in our business where I'm like, if we don't do this soon, we're going to run into a problem delivering what we have to deliver on. And so, that's what I'm busy with now in terms of what we're going to do in 2025. Is a lot of things around, the next
Yeah,
step
like
for this
strategy and
organization.
planning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And the bigger you get, the harder it becomes to continue to do what you've been doing. And so I think that having this time and having this sort of day-to-day freedom has allowed me to spend more time in focusing on what that next step looks like for us.
And I find that like the bigger you get to, the skills that you had are no longer of, I don't want to say of value, but they're not going to get you to where you need to be. If growth is what you're looking for, some people just kind of want to sit back and not grow and enjoy what they've built, which is totally fine. Do you ever see like at some point in time, like, hey, what do you do for growth? How do you manage that within yourself? And do you ever see yourself like maybe putting a president in, or somebody that would maybe take over the bigger roles, or maybe you've already done that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we got to that transitional point where when I came out of operations and being involved with the operations, like that's what I felt I was really good at. I felt like I had a good mind for sort of seeing the issue and designing the process and defining the process and resolving. Like I think that was a good sort of bridge from being on the customer side and being on the internal side and being able to manage. As I got out of that, it did beg the question. I'm like, am I the right person to sort of do this? What do I have to do to my own internal skill set to be able to take this business and do another 2x or 3x and deal with it? So, I think a lot of that has come down to, obviously you've been a good mentor, but having those conversations, YPO's been one, doing some of these courses. I know you said, keep
Oh, Keith
Cunningham.
Cunningham. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like just being involved with learning, like, going to M&A classes and trying to develop the other skill sets for what the business looks like going forward. Do I think that we can just organically grow forever and ever? No, I don't think so. I think at some point, if we want to continue to iterate this business, it's going to be, rolling something else up, or expanding to a different product line or whatever else it might be. That, am I qualified and am I capable to do this? And if not, then who am I partnering with? Who am I leaning on? How am I learning about what that next step of this business looks like? I think for me, that getting out of the day-to-day operations and sort of transitioning into this role, which I would say is more of a president CEO sort of mentality in the business, is also challenged myself and my skill sets. And so, finding time to listen to podcasts, to read books, to speak with people who have been there and done that, and sort of being able to understand how they did it is something that I think I'm working on pretty actively.
Yeah, dude, that's, I mean, not surprising to me, but it, there's you've done such a great job at building this business, and yeah, it's phenomenal. Um, I mean, dude, it's so, you should be so proud of yourself.
Yeah, that means a lot. The best is I get to sit with my dad sometimes, and we talk about the early days, and I'm like, did you ever think? Right, and he just, like, the smile, like the look on his face is all like, that I think is probably the most rewarding thing, is he looks around and he's like, this is great. And it was never sort of about this, like, this is sort of the beautiful outcome to a journey. But having the chance to work with him, and work with my sister, and work in a family business is, yeah, it can. I've heard the other sides of what what that equation looks like, but it's been phenomenal for our family. And so, like the that journey together, like sort of doing it together, doing it with your family has been something that, I'd say to any of your listeners out there, like if you have the chance and you have the opportunity, it's been a blessing for our family. And, I would say, um, one of the important things probably is just to have clearly defined roles within a family business. You can't have too many cooks in the kitchen, so make sure everyone sort of understands what everybody else's role is. Communication. We're always talking. We have lunch together almost every day as a family, and
Do you really?
yeah, yeah, we have lunch together. The four of us have lunch together every day. Yep.
So,
So,
so
sorry, Anna.
your sister, your mom, and your dad,
No, me, my
or
sister, my dad, and Anna.
oh, Nana.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. We
okay.
have lunch every single day together, and we have lots of conversations, lots of communication. And I think, I'll tell you one of the most important things for me when I joined this business. My dad, and maybe that was just the size of the business at the time. He was like, I trust you. I welcome your opinions. I'm happy you were like externally trained, and I'm looking forward to what you bring to the business. Not that he let me do anything easily. Everything was, scratching and clawing for a buck to make an investment. And, he put me through the ringer, and I had to come up with all sorts of presentations and things until finally he got comfortable enough as a business group. He stopped bugging me. But I will give him a lot of credit for the fact that he was open to receiving the next generation into the business and having them come and inject their sort of ideas and their experience. I've had friends who've gone to their businesses and their family businesses, and a little bit bigger than ours, obviously, but the father figure would have been like, hey, it's my way, and I've done it this way, and I built it, and you'll work under me, and you know that's hard. And so, if anybody out there is in a family business, anybody out there is considering to do it, I think like laying that out on the table in a very early manner, and understanding what that role looks like and how much autonomy you have, and like what's the angle of value that you're going to bring to the business is a super important discussion early, because it can get really discouraging. I've had a couple of friends who've wanted to leave, like they're like, I can't sort of operate in this environment, right? So that's
I mean, that's so. A couple of points to this was before you had mentioned your family. I was going to say like, my one comment was going to be like how you have done it and done it with the integrity with your family is phenomenal. And so I take my hat off to you, because that's to your point. This most recent point is it's not easy. And I'm not so sure I could have done that. I don't know if that's in my wheelhouse. I don't think. But I admire people who can, and it's just so amazing. Um, the the to your last point there was there are companies like, and I think this is a really really good point, because there are so many families. It's more common that businesses disrupt a family culture than they actually enhance it. I would say, in my experience of meeting and talking to people, I would say it's probably a 2 to 1, ratio. If I had to put a number, that's not researched or anything like that, so don't take it to the bank, anybody. But but I do think um, a little bit of planning in the beginning goes a long way. And if if the family members don't want to plan, then that's your cue to say no, because but there are companies, and I forget the word for it, but there are companies that coach families on turnovers, or what's the word that I'm, if you can think of it, but anyways, succession planning. Yeah. So there's companies out there that do succession planning. Thanks for that. And, but and they're worth their weight in gold. To make sure that if you're in that situation, it helps with the communication, and exactly who's going to do what, who's responsible for what, and what are your outcomes, and what are the goalposts going to be, and it goes right back to like, what are the goalposts, what's the system, like how you guys going to communicate. That's a huge point. And communicate effectively, because you know communication is not necessarily all positive. So it's critical. And did you guys ever do any of that, or do you guys just all go along?
Yeah, I mean, we got along, but we definitely did have discussions around, like where are the boundaries, who's kind of doing what. And I'll say I was super fortunate. Like my dad and I, we had a very symbiotic relationship. Like he did all the stuff I didn't want to do, I did all the stuff he didn't want to do. Like it worked out really really well. So that was that was a great partnership. And then my sister came on board, and obviously added to that. That was great. But I think it took a lot of communication in terms of you know if things aren't going as you may see fit, like please speak up. Like I don't want this to be resentment. We're still a close family. I just mentioned to you, we're all going away on a family trip. We travel together all the time. We see each other all the time. Um, I think that's the most important thing for us, more than the business, more than anything else that goes on here. I think preserving that family unit was important. And we put that in front of money, but I think money's an important one to have discussions with. I think that's where we generally see things fall off the rails when I talk to some of my friends and people who have been in family businesses is their expectation between their involvement and their compensation and the things that go along with it. So I think it's good to be super clear about that. My dad and I were super clear about it early on in our journey, and I think it's kind of taken some of the stress away from what happens, especially when the business starts to grow, rapidly and maybe got bigger than we ever thought it kind of would get to. It didn't leave a lot of sort of questions that weren't going to be answered, right? And I think we had a this is another big one, and I think it goes back to the earlier conversation around compounding interest and investing in your business. But we had a philosophy early on that said business first. Like we got to live below our means externally and for some time, because that money early on in an entrepreneurial journey, the cash is so important inside a business, and the return that you can generate inside your business if you're doing a good job is significant and staggering, and it starts to really compound itself pretty quickly. And I think that everybody was on board for that, which was amazing. Because if somebody was like, you know what, I gotta go buy, I need money to go do this, and I want to go do that, and I want to go buy my fancy car or do whatever, like you're starting to take cash out and at a disproportionate level to somebody else. But I think everybody had the same mentality, which was, put the business first, make decisions. If we're going to make decisions on the business, the way we always used to analyze it, the downside risk for us making a decision was, can the current EBITDA fund the project? And if that's the case, then you're just playing with house money. Like you're just playing with your own dollars, and you should have a very short window of decision making time process there. Like if you can afford it from your own current nest egg, then and you see obviously the quantitative upside of this, like go do it quickly, like make decisions fast. That's something that we talk about here. You got to be quick to make decisions, and I would rather that you made a decision even if it's wrong, but it was well thought through, than making no decision at all. Like, no decision at all is not an option.
No, you're
Right?
leaving your business up to fate, and that's
That's
no,
right.
that's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
good. Like, or
yeah. It's no good.
happenstance.
So
Like it's like
yeah, yeah, but so that's what you get from some people, or you get paralysis by analysis. Like they're going to take 6 months to make a decision because they need to see if it's 90-10 certain that this is going to be success. I'm like, that's not the world of an entrepreneur, and you're making decisions that are 51-49, 60-40, no clear path. Qualitative decision on the side. What's the downside risk? Can you afford it? Like those are the kind of things that really start to propel you forward. And I think in our view, it was put your money where your mouth is. Like if if we have profits, this is not to be stripped. This is to be reinvested, and we're betting on ourselves, and we're betting on our process, and we're betting on sort of the way that we see the world. And that money inside the company is going to turn way more return than taking it out, buying something or trying to take it out and invest it, at 5% and then pay tax on that at the end of the day. Like, that as an entrepreneur, the tax efficiency of having that money back into the business and reinvesting is such a marvelous thing at the end. And I'm speaking now in hindsight to be able to look back at the journey, right, and say that was probably one of the best things that we sort of did, was we all got on the same page, right? So that's a hard one in a family business.
and a partnership too. So just so the listeners don't get lost on family and go, oh, okay, I'm going to disconnect here because I'm not in a family business. Well, do you have partners? And everybody has to understand that cash is the lifeblood of the business, and if you deplete it from cash, then you're sacrificing something. Whether that's like long-term enterprise value, whether it's in like growth within the next year, 2 years. Like there's something that you're going to sacrifice. Well,
Flexibility, ability to weather a storm, a downturn in the economy. Like, I mean, these are all sorts of things where, you better have a clear path in terms of what you want to have, what your war chest look like, those kinds of things are important to have. And I think they're important to have early with your partner, with your business, with your spouse. I mean, even sometimes that's an internal conversation. Hey, you know what? We're going to put a few of these things on hold for us to be able to do this. And are you comfortable? Because otherwise that can become a problem even internally in a house, right? So just communicating that expectation of where you're kind of going with this and what your goal is with this business and what the intention is super important.
yeah, it's you make a good point because you used the comment war chest. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that don't exist today because they didn't have any kind of war chest when COVID happened. And if you didn't apply, if you couldn't apply or you couldn't get any of those subsidies that were happening, sometimes the subsidies weren't enough. And those businesses, couldn't get a bridge of financing or whatever the story was. Um, it's having a war chest is a big deal. You know, if you're going to go out and pimp your ride, you better make sure that you know what the upsides and the downsides of that decision are. And we've lived the same kind of philosophy. Like we reinvest and we reinvest and we reinvest, and it's like we don't try to live a lavish lifestyle. It's like we're not jet setting around the world taking like I don't know when the last time I was on a vacation actually. Like I'm not saying I haven't been, but it's either been because of business or like it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll go and maybe extend for a couple days because we're there for a business meeting or whatever. But it's just like we don't do that. Like it's just we just I just love the game, so I just want to keep point. It's like playing Monopoly. It's like, well, I'm not gonna, it's like I'm just gonna keep investing. I'm gonna keep investing, and someday, someday my kids will appreciate it, but on a month to month basis, like there's not a lot of drawdown because we just want to keep it going.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think you said it correctly. Like that's the line that gets blurred sometimes when you're an entrepreneur. Like I don't know what's working, what's play. It's all fun. It's all fun to me, and some of those things happen. Yeah, I went on a business trip and I tacked on a couple of days personal, and I'm back at it. And I think that it, some people define like, hey, I work 9 to 5, then I got to go take a vacation to take a break from what this is. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you're loving to be involved in the game, you're loving what you do. It all feels like, I mean, to me, it might sound corny to you, but it all feels like fun. Like I feel like I'm excited every day I come and I want to play. And I don't, the line doesn't have such a clear delineation between vacation off time and sort of work time. Like if you really enjoy what you do and you're enjoying that, you'll find time to sort of decompress and have some fun and do the things. But it doesn't have to be sort of absolute like
Yeah.
on
I
ramp.
also think too, you make decisions like this is kind of more reflective to the previous comment, but it's like you make decisions a little differently as an entrepreneur when you have people that rely on you for their mortgage, for their food, for their family, and you've got to be careful. Like in your business, you can invest, I'm sure, a couple million in a machine, and if all of a sudden that thing doesn't work out the way you planned, you can't use that space for nothing. So okay, the $2 million machine's out, and I'm selling it for pennies on the dollar, and I'm bringing in a $3 million machine. So now all of a sudden it's a net cost to the business of $5 million. I mean, those are real things. Like just because things are going in one trajectory today does not mean they're going in the same trajectory tomorrow. You can in business, you can take a loss like, you know,
Yeah, and that's why when we're making those decisions, like we're trying to never make a decision to bet the farm on something that could end up in zero or total business. Like that's just some people are like, oh, it's risk, and I'm going to take 100% of this risk, but the downside of that risk is like literally 100% business loss and bye bye. Like that. those are not sort of things that we entertain. You know, like I told you earlier, we've grown slowly, but we've always grown trying to utilize our own profits, our own cash. Like I'll eat last. I got to make sure my employees are taken care of. I got to make sure that the business gets invested in, and I'm the last guy to eat at the table, and I'll live my life like I'm the last guy at the table. And maybe there'll be a point in life, like you said, where our kids are going to appreciate all this, and that they're going to benefit. But if you live with that mentality that it's you can survive and be comfortable, but then the rest of this is about taking that business's gains and utilizing that for sort of future growth, but also utilizing it to make sure that you're not taking on a risk that's greater than your ability to fund that risk
Right.
reasonably. Because that's where you start to see and hear about life problems. It's that war chest. Hey, you know what? I need to have a bunch of cash here. What if you lose your major client? What if this happens? What if you make that $2 million machine investment and the business doesn't transpire the way you thought it was going to transpire? COVID comes, financial crisis comes, whatever else happens. How long can you afford to be able to fund this thing? We look at our business on a horizon that's 10 years from now. So do you plan to be in business in 10 years? Yes, I do. Are we building processes and things to be in business in 10 years? Yes, I am. Can shit hit the fan between now and 10 years? Yes, and it may and it will, and we better be prepared that if it does happen, what do we have behind us that makes sure that we're still going to be in this for long? Look, we trust our process, we trust our equipment, we trust all these things that we built, and in the long run, these things will pan out. But in any short window of time between now and that end period, stuff can go wrong, and you better be prepared for it to go wrong. And I think that sometimes gets lost. Entrepreneurs who are like, hey, you know what? We're going to keep going, and it's always going to be rosy, and we can leverage all the way up to the end, and we don't have to worry about a thing. And then the moment something like that happens, it unravels very, very, very.
Yeah, business is an intellectual sport, and you cannot play business the same way you did when you started. Like when I started, chips in, man. Like, but there was
Yeah,
only four
that's right.
chips.
Yeah, that's
There's like there was hardly anything. So,
100%. Yeah,
but when when you don't have much, you do have to risk a larger percentage. And then if you have a redo at a young age, it's not as maybe not as big a deal. But now, when you have hundreds of employees and you have to have a redo, like now they hurt. And so you're right. Yeah, 100%. Like I'll take a bullet to the kneecap, but I'll make sure that we don't take one to the head. Yeah, yeah, I love it, dude. This is a fantastic conversation. I mean, I'm happy to keep going if
yeah, this has
you
been
want to
awesome.
keep
No,
chatting, but this is like we've covered a lot of content. Partners, family, your recipe, which was phenomenal. Listen, I'm going to say this, like, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, um, this is a guy that has been a consecutive 12-year fastest growing company in Canada. Like that is, let's not get lost on that. And so there's a lot of nuggets in this conversation that if you're looking to grow your business here in 2025, and I wasn't sure where this was going, but I kind of had some idea just because I know you really well, and I know your success track record. If you're looking to grow your business in 2025, you might want to pay attention to some of this stuff because there's a footprint here, and you don't have to use it all, but there's three or four or one. All you need is one. Uh, pieces that you can take away and implement in your business and train your people on, or do whatever it takes. And that's what's going to take you from where you are today to where you want to be by the end of 2025. And so I'm so glad, Irfan, that like you're kicking off the year in 2025. We're not here yet. So um, wishing you and your family an amazing holiday. Um, you know, just all the blessings in the world to you guys, and I hopefully we'll be able to connect this winter. But I'm so appreciative of you being on the show, and I'm so appreciative of you sharing your recipe or success formula. Um, I'm hoping that people will just pay really really close attention to what you've said today because it's so valuable. So I appreciate you, brother.
For sure. No, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here, and I hope you have happy holidays. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Okay, well, thanks so much. We're going to wrap this up. How can people find you, or do you want them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way if you want to find there. And then our company's website's www.evbox.com. Don't hold it against me. That website's from 2007 or 9 or something
which
when I joined.
which
So
is
that was my first
again
one.
awesome. It's
It's so
so
crazily bad. Yeah,
it's
don't go
so
there.
crazy, bro.
Don't
I'm
go
going.
there.
You know that everybody's going on your website.
I'm embarrassed. I'm like,
Everybody is.
I know. I'm like, I want to wait till we do the website before I do the podcast, but it didn't work out in time. We're reformulating the website, but I'm like, oh
Oh
my
God,
god,
I'm going
the
on. I'm
website's so
going on
bad.
the website like
It is
as
so
soon as we're done here.
bad.
It's
Don't
gonna be,
go. Don't go.
and
I'm gonna call IT and
I'm
take it
gonna take
offline
the
right
screenshots and
now.
like send them to you in 10 years. Oh my God. Look,
Whew.
I'm glad you
It's
said
bad.
that
Yeah.
because it's everybody. The first thing that everybody wants to do when they start a business or buy a business is they want to get I gotta have the best logo, and I gotta get a website and make sure it's like pimp out my website. And trust me, I've made those mistakes too. And it's like, yeah, yep, it's important, but also it might be more important depending on the space that you're in as well. There's no question. There's no question about that. Um, uh, but it is really interesting, considering your growth record with a 2007 website. Yeah, yeah.
It's bad. It's
Is it
so
still
funny.
on
It's
Netscape?
like it's Yeah. I think we just switched IT companies, and they're like, you can't have this. There's no like, there's no SSL or something. They're like, we have to redo this thing, and I'm like, okay, please just fix it, and we're gonna read. So we're working with them to redevelop it. But the business had grown so fast, and it was always like, this is the right time, and then we add another piece of equipment, and then another piece of equipment, and we were like, we kind of wanted to continue to showcase what it was. Like even when we built the facility in 2020. I don't know if I told you, but we had like my dad and I, we disagreed over real estate versus productive equipment. So in our old facility, we were in 20,000 square feet or whatever, and we were bursting at the seams, and he wanted to buy a building, and I'm like, okay, but whatever you buy, you have to buy something that's big enough that I can grow into this building. Well, at that time, that was more building than we could afford to have bought, and so we ended up driving around, and we like this came full circle. My dad lives 6 minutes from here. We used to drive by. This used to be farmland forever and ever when we grew up. And he sees a sign, and he's like, "Hey, I saw a sign driving. Can you call the guy?" And I call this guy literally right now, December 2016, this time of the year, and they have one lot left. And I negotiate with this guy, and we buy this land in like
Wow.
10 days. Literally, like we had no idea what we were doing. We're like, we buy this land, we call a couple builders, we understood the cost. Again, like this goes back to
Yeah, I was
you got to
just
make
about to say
decisions
that.
quickly, and we made this decision. Yeah, yeah. We've never been shy to make decisions, and so we did it, and then it took a multitude of years to build, and we had planned to build the first 40,000 and have an expansion of another 20,000, and my dad was like, let's build it all, and I'm like, no, let's not build it all. There's capital constraints. I'm like, let's build what we think we need, which still doubles where we are today, but gives me enough cash to buy equipment and put inside his business. And so he agrees, we do it, and we arm ourselves with some brand new tech as we walk into this thing. February 2020, we come in, and literally March 2020, the world shuts down, right? COVID hits. And we're like, oh, we just built this brand new, shiny manufacturing
Oh,
facility. We we just spent, like $6-7 million in equipment, and nobody was taking an order for the first month. And we're like, do do do. And then the world entirely flipped, right? Like you could only eat two places, grocery or takeout. We did both, and we are one of the only guys in the industry with that much capacity because we layered on this new equipment, right? It's that success is where preparation meets
yep,
opportunity,
yep.
or luck is at
Yeah,
that point. But like we yeah, right. And so we're sitting there with all this equipment, and all of a sudden the business starts to absolutely go crazy. And 8 months later, we signed the contract. What was our 5-year expansion plan to build the expansion out? 8 months later, we build out the expansion facility, right? And so because the growth has been so rapid for us, like every time we think it's a good time to go do something, clean up the website, take a video, like we're finally in the spot where we think we're going to be, and then 6 months later, three more pieces of equipment show up, or an expansion happens, and you're like, oh, I want to capture all that, and so that website thing just kept getting kicked this can down the road. But I think it's something in early 2025 we'll target. Probably not
Well, you're
before
going to have to do
January 8th,
something
but
to get
or,
the fastest
yeah,
growing company in 2025. So maybe it's the
yeah,
website.
yeah,
Dude,
that's
I mean,
right.
it's such a great story, and I'm glad you shared it because it really highlights what I love about it is it highlights, quick decision making, but it also highlights discipline, which is, when your dad was saying, hey, let's build the whole thing. It's like, no, we need equipment. We need some capital. We got to be careful. We don't want a bullet to the brain. And, had COVID lasted longer, that could have been a bullet to the brain. So it's like,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is,
could have been.
it is a unbelievable example of much of what we've just talked about. And so, thank you for sharing it because I think it puts like a exclamation mark right at the end of the conversation and shows that you guys this is look. I mean, you're not selling books anyways. Like it's like it's not like you're a consultant or something. That's you're just. What I love about this podcast is like you're in there grinding it out every
Ordinary guy.
single day, just like
That's right.
most of
Yeah,
the people listening to this podcast. And so I'm so grateful for this wisdom. It's and the proof is in the pudding. So congratulations to all your success and to the family. Love you, buddy. Yeah,
thank you so much. Appreciate
thanks for coming
it.
on.
Okay, you too, man.
Okay.